Radical. Want to give a little preview and talk a little bit about the Big Sky Championship game. It's getting ready to happen here in just a bit. So Montana versus Montana State. Who would believe it? 3 seed versus 4 seed. So early in the year, of course, Weber State, top 25 team in the country, toweling out the yin yang. Everybody's penciled them in. Didn't happen. So when conference play started here, Big Sky Conference play, Weber opened up the Big Sky Conference at home against Montana State. Crushed them, blew them out, beat them by more than 20 points. That was early. It's a credit to Montana's athletic department. It's an absolute credit to. Now remember, I dedicated the season to Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson, it's important because I met Moody's father here this year, and me and him had quite the little discussion anyway. It was over a misunderstanding, but anyway, great guy. His son is 27 years old, but that dude is good. But I says, well, what about Anthony Johnson? He says, yeah, they're wearing the patches on their uniforms. The greatest performance in the history of this building, that's saying a lot. You know, Jason Kidd, Jimmy Valvano and crew, Thurl Bailey. All these great legendary players. The greatest performance in the history, March Madness, in the history of this building. Anthony Johnson against Damian Lillard. Down 42-20. Doesn't miss a free throw, doesn't miss a field goal the entire second half. Not a one. Come back and upset Weber at the buzzer. Double team, triple team, quad, didn't matter. It didn't matter. He was asked years later, because he never did it before, he never did it after. He says, what do you attribute it to? He says, I had an out-of-body experience. I can relate. I grew up right here, this hallowed sacred ground. By the way, I think young Moody, if I'm not mistaken, lived on the res for a while, one of them. He's got native roots. Ford the third, some kind of player. It's a credit to Montana State. It's supposed to be the big down year. Whew. If someone would have told you they're playing in the Big Sky Championship game after those 2 games here, they'd give you 100,000 to 1. It's like, I was doing the math on the pandemic, 2020. Speaking of Dylan Jones playing empty, that was his freshman year. Jared Carr didn't get to play a tournament that year. Pandemic. Now, what day was that declared? I was down there in Salt Lake when it was declared, right by the Jazz Arena. Colbert? Yeah, basketball metaphors matter. So the pandemic of Spanish flu of 1918 was declared in Kansas. The first case was declared. First case, March 11th, 1918. Of course, Fukushima disaster, March 11th. Of course, Lord, that game, Anthony Johnson, March 10th. You know, that's when it happened here, but in the United States, but March 11th. The demic was declared on March 11th, so both demics, 1918, Spanish flu and COVID was declared both March 11th, and Fukushima happened on that day, March 11th. You know what the statistical probability is at? I'm the old stats professor. Real easy, kids. Okay, so you take a date. What's the date of this other epic event that mirrors it happening? Well, there's 364 possibilities, right? 365 if it's a leap year, which it is this year. Leap. So you times it by 365. Okay, you take that number, which you have 300. So you take what's happened the third time in the pandemic, Fukushima. So that's 300 and is that right? 380,000? No. Where is it? Yeah, I believe 380,000. No, 320,000. 320,000 800 and something. 325. Get out your calculator. I'm just thinking about this in my brain. So 365 times 364. Yeah, 320,820, right? Anyway, March Madness. So we don't get games here anymore. Arnie Farron died this year, so this Montana team has played so solid the last few weeks. Now remember, this is the thing me and him had the misunderstanding on. I was talking football, he's talking basketball. Remember the football team? Weber State was top 10 in the country. Spring started yesterday. I'm not going to spring football anymore. I'm done with those guys. Not the players. I mean, don't even get me going. Abraham Williams up at Idaho. What? Yeah. So, Montana was picked 5th. Do you know Montana not only won the Big Sky, played in the national championship? Okay. Basketball. Where were they picked here, Montana? 4th or 5th in the conference. They're playing in the Big Sky Championship game. Now, I want people to understand what is the matter with the Big Sky. I mean, I can get into a lot of things, but for this century in the NCAA tournament, they are 1-24. It was Montana got a win. I think it was 2007-ish. Larry Kostoviak was coaching then. And I want to say congratulations to my buddy, Danny Sprinkle. Me and him used to go to March Madness together back when we were just young. Well, he was real young, but after he got done playing at Montana State, Utah State player, I got to tell this story. We're standing here after the Montana State game. Kev, standing there, and he's saying, well, you know, Montana State's better than people think they are this year, and we were just beat them by 20-some. I'm like, yeah, and he says, they're big guys. They're just as good as those big guys. I says, I don't think so. And he said, well, maybe not Bolo, but they're better than the rest. I don't think so. So I look over my shoulder. Who's standing right there? They came down from Utah State. Great. Osabar. I walk over there. We were talking. And he says, one of the other players was, hey, you remember him that played here at Montana last year? And I says, yeah, he was great. I told Kev, hey, you just said he wasn't good. Go tell him that. Okay, it's a small circle when it comes to basketball. Basketball metaphors matter. So, I mean, I like both teams. They're both well coached. They're both, solid. But I sure like to see a team go into the NCAA tournament beat somebody. I will quote Harold Arson on the show, right? It's colder than hell here today, and I mean cold. All those great years of March Madness games in this building, no more. I mean, we used to get second rounds in here. Ask Jimmy Valvano. I watched him tuck down the nets. I watched Jason Kidd's last game in here. So many epic games in here. Bowie Tubbs and Lamar knocked over Weber State. Yeah, Weber State had a home game in 1980. What a team. Harold Arson of the show. The last time a Big Sky team won an NCAA tournament. This year, we're having the 25th anniversary. Takes the microphone. What a player. And he says, yeah, we were a Big Sky team. We knew we were good. We knew we had what it took. The great Ronna Baglin, Eddie Gill, Andy Jensen, Lawson. We went up there. We knew we were going to beat them. We had all the confidence in the world. We beat them. We sent shockwaves through basketball. We woke them up and showed them who Weber State basketball is. We had Florida beat. Yes, they did have Florida. Weber won that game, and it was just a total fluke that ended up in overtime. I think Weber would have been a Final Four team. They were that good. He says, we're waiting for the next team to go in to the tournament and shock them and show them what Weber State basketball is. His last words, he looks right over and he says, still waiting. Oh, boy, on Balco. Still fucking waiting. So, congratulations to Montana and Montana State. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. As I've said for years, it's not how you play in November or December or January for that matter, or even February. Real basketball doesn't begin till March. And so, They're not going to let Montana State out there and knock down 20-something threes like Weber State. Because Weber State, hey, all they had to do is call timeout, say, hey, push the perimeter. We're having a dry spell. Give the ball to the greatest player in the conference. And it just shows you. The most talented team, Weber State by far. That don't mean shit. Just because you have the most talented team, that don't mean you win. This coaching staff couldn't win with Michael Jordan on the court. Ask Damian Lillard. Of course, Anthony Johnson took care of that, and that was a fluke. So, he died this year. He took a stroke at his little girl's birthday party. So I dedicated the season to him. I would have bet no way Montana in the championship game, but they're the favorite, rightfully so. Will they win it? I don't know. My guess, yes. But if I was a gambling guy, and I saw the writing on the wall, I knew that this conference way was all year. Underdogs will prevail in that tournament, just like they did last year. NAU went to the championship game. Sac State came very close. This league is that competitive, and it's overcoached. There's a lot of issues with it. So, as long as Weber State's went without going to the big dance in the history of the school. Haven't won a game since 1999. Well, nobody in the Big Sky. When you get the 16 and 15 seed, well, somebody needs to play a preseason schedule where they actually win, and show up and play solid all year round. But these guys can't do it. So Moody's 27 years old, but he's been on fire, but so is Montana State. Go figure. So, preview. Wanted to get this up. What's the statistical probability? Basketball? Anything can happen. That's Jimmy Valvano. Stay in tune.